Still seeing people join. We'll get underway in just a few seconds. For those of you that are just logging in, thank you for coming and spending a part of your afternoon with us. We'll get underway here in just a few moments. Still see people joining. That's good. Everyone, welcome. We'll get underway in just a few seconds. For those of you who have been here for over a minute, I apologize for the repetition, but we want to let you know that the new folks coming in that we see you coming in, we want to give a few minutes for folks to be able to join with us before we get underway. Oh, great turnout today. That's fantastic. Be underway here in just a moment. Okay, it looks like our participants, folks coming in here at the beginning, to slow down a bit. Mariana, if you'd like to start our recording, we'll go ahead.
Recording in progress.
All right, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Chad Funk. I am the person who oversees the ZTC program here at the Chancellor's Office. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar, the ZTC 2025 Allocation Overview. Before we get started, I want to inform our attendees that we have a few housekeeping issues. So first, if you want to access live captioning, you can do so by clicking on the Show Captions icon at the bottom of your screen. During today's webinar, you can engage with us by using the Q&A feature that you can also access there at the bottom of the screen. Our presenters will try to answer as many questions as possible during the live session. Please note, this webinar is being recorded. All slides and materials will be made available within the next week or two on the Chancellor's Office website. I will also send out a notification through the ZTC listserv when this recording is available. To get started, I would like our presenters to introduce themselves, and then we'll begin this informational session. If you can go to the next slide, please. And James Todd, you're up first.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am James Todd. I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor, and I have the pleasure of having this program for ZTC in my portfolio. Pass it over to James.
Hey, everybody. James Glop-Grossklag. My home team is College of the Canyons, where I have the pleasure of serving as a dean, and I'm very honored to serve as technical assistance provider to the Chancellor's Office on the ZTC degree grant program.
Hi, good afternoon and Happy New Year. We're still in the first month of the new year. Welcome, everyone. Michelle Pilati. I'm the project director for the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges Open Educational Resources Initiative, more commonly referred to simply as OERI. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you to each of our presenters for being available today to provide information about the ZTC 2025 allocation and to share insights and allowable uses for funds. Next slide, please. Today, we're going to cover the following topics in our agenda. We're going to talk about the ZTC accomplishments and objectives, the purpose of the ZTC 2025 allocation and expected impacts, allowable uses of the ZTC 2025 allocation and associated reporting requirements, our technical assistance program services and upcoming supports, OERI future planning for system-wide OER enhancements, and then we'll respond to questions submitted in the chat as time permits. At this time, I want to welcome James Todd to share regarding the ZT program's accomplishments and the ZTC 2025 allocation objectives. James?
Thanks, Chad. All right, we'll go to the next slide. And we'll follow along, and a lot of the details are also on the screen. So, part of this is providing a little bit of context of the history of how we've gotten to where we are. So the Chancellor's Office received $115 million in 2021 for the ZTC program. And if you remember, we initially rolled out $20,000 planning grants through NOVA. certification given to the 115 colleges in June 2022. And then all colleges received $180,000 in March 2023 to develop and implement at least one zero textbook cost academic pathway. And we had a ZTC follow-up, an Acceleration 1 grant program that was released in fall 2023. And there were many colleges that were given initial awards of about $25,000 for participation in collaboration cohorts to avoid duplication. In other words, you might have chosen a specific discipline, and we work with the AFCCC OERI to help facilitate those collaboration cohorts. We had another phase of grants called the Acceleration 2 Impacted OER Expansion grants that were released for application in spring and summer 2024. And then we started to review those as those came in. Initial award notifications were sent in fall 2024. Some colleges got some notifications earlier on in the fall semester, but we completed that by December. And Acceleration 1 additional funds notifications were also sent at the end of fall 2024 as well. And then recently, you've seen the memo that came out towards mid to late December of the ZTC 2025 allocation that is going to be released to all colleges at P1, and that's between late February and early March 2025. So that's the picture of how we have spent this $115 million and allocated it to colleges. We'll go to the next slide. And so part of what has occurred throughout all of this funding to colleges is that each college will have received at least $520,000 to implement a minimum of 3 ZTC program pathways. And that happened with the initial $200,000 that went to colleges, and this last ZTC 2025 allocation was $320,000 for colleges. In fact, colleges were allocated $400,000, but $320,000 to be spent at the college, and we are using $80,000 of those allocations as well for each college to also facilitate the work of the OERI. So this is an important system priority for us to have an infrastructure with the OERI to help foster sustainability, to be inclusive and work across programs, especially ones that have been hard to convert into ZTC and OER work, and to broaden a system approach with the cultivation, curation, and maintenance of OER materials. So all California regions and districts will have multiple ZTC program pathways that are available to their students. And we're at the point where now we have about over 500 ZTC program pathways that are currently under development, and more are coming. And the collaboration cohort process brought together faculty from across the state, multiple disciplines to discover, share, and consider a collaborative approach to designing OER for their courses. We're going to go to the next slide. And this purpose of this last allocation, and I want to kind of frame this a little bit as well. We only had about a third of colleges that submitted an Acceleration 2 or an impact grant plan in NOVA. And when we rolled that out in spring and summer, we were really hoping that we would have a wide array of colleges participating. So we started to see a system impact and flourishing of OER development across campuses. And so part of our effort in allocating the rest of the funds for the ZTC effort has been to try to shift and ensure that all colleges are participating in this work and developing pathways. And so we prioritized as best as we could the Acceleration 2 and impact grants that were in NOVA. All the grants that we received were fully reviewed by a team Then we also had a set aside to ensure that at least $320,000 went to each college to support this ZTC program development. And I'll state now, I am empathetic, especially where we had colleges that put in multiple requests as well for grant funding. We simply were not able to fund everything and also have a system sustainable approach to ensure that we had programs that were being developed across all of our colleges. The other piece of this, as I think I alluded to, is that this is going to significantly support the ASCCC OERI and allow for the Chancellor's Office to contract with the ASCCC to have a sustainability plan in place and future development of OER materials from this investment. If you have not perused the OERI website, we are going to continue to build that infrastructure and support the work across CalGEPC, across our ADT patterns, and to really facilitate an ongoing maintenance for materials on a regular basis to ensure that we have these for future courses across many years. Also, this approach is also going to enable funding for a statewide OER platform that will allow us to provide a one-stop location for locating, adapting, and publishing open educational resources. The legislation that we received when we got the initial funding really housed it in a referatory and Cool for Ed, and now we really want to make sure that we have the infrastructure built so everything that's being produced at the moment can live in one place and that all colleges can participate in this system. And finally, this ZTC 2025 allocation is really aimed at providing flexibility for local colleges to maximize their ZTC efforts and their program pathways. And I would say use this wisely. I know that Chad and our team is going to talk much more about the flexibility and the scenarios of the funding, but we now are at a place where the $115 million that we have support, let's do something really transformative across our system with those funds. And I hope what I've covered so far makes a lot of sense in terms of us aiming at a systematic approach across all of our colleges to develop these pathways for all of our students. And we'll go to the next slide. And I believe I'm handing it off to Chad.
James, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chad.
Appreciate it. Thank you for that overview. So I'm going to talk to you about the allocation itself and the allowable funding uses for your colleges. So next slide, please. So the ZTC 2025 allocation, as James mentioned, is meant to give all colleges $320,000 additional dollars to build out ZTC program pathways. There is flexibility, but that's in some cases. So we're going to go through those scenarios and explain those areas. But in short, colleges in expenditure flexibility is really dependent upon if you submitted Acceleration 1 and Acceleration 2 program pathways or not, or if you were fully funded for what you submitted in the first place. So if you think about this, if your college is in a situation where there were no submitted Acceleration 1 grants or no Acceleration 2 grants or impact grants, then your college is going to be required to develop 2 additional program pathways. However, if you're in a situation where you had Acceleration 1 programs that went to collaboration cohorts and you did not receive the full amount of funds that you requested, then in that case, some of those funds can be used, and we'll go through that. The big thing to remember is this: based upon the number of program pathways you have at your institution, no ZTC pathway per the legislation can go over $200,000. So you'll need to do the math with what you've been awarded and then use the funds accordingly wisely. Next slide, please. So let's dig in a little bit to what the situational uses would be. So scenario 1, colleges had no awarded Acceleration 1 or Acceleration 2 program pathways. those colleges are required to develop at least 2 additional ZTC program pathways with the allocation of the $320,000. Scenario 2. So we have colleges that were funded at 100% of the amount for an Acceleration 1 or Acceleration 2 program pathway. If you were funded fully for what you requested, you are required to use the ZTC allocation funds to develop 2 additional pathways. Now, scenario 3 is where it gets a little more complex. So for colleges that participated in collaboration cohorts, they received an original $25,000 in initial awards. Also, for many colleges that submitted an Acceleration 2 award, they received awards that could have been less than the total amount that they requested. In those cases, the 2025 allocation can be used to backfill underfunded programs. Again, no pathway can exceed $200,000 due to the legislation. That is a ceiling placed by the legislation itself. If you look at the funds that you received, the additional $320,000, and if your $320,000 is going to be used to backfill current pathways, then you need to make sure that your programs do not exceed $200,000. If they do, then you are on the requirement list to create a new ZTC program pathway. Next slide, please. Okay, so this will hopefully also lay it out a little easier. If you were an implementation grant only college, you're going to have to develop 2 new program pathways. The way that they'll do that is you will submit the new pathways that you're going to do either as an Acceleration 2 or an impact grant in NOVA. So therefore, NOVA is going to stay open to continue to submit plans. The ZTC reporting will be according to those grant phases. So in other words, if you only ever submitted an implementation grant inside of NOVA, you'll come back and you'll submit an Acceleration 2 for more unique program pathways. Or down there, you see at the bottom of the screen, there is the link to the OERI collaboration cohorts. If it's one of the programs identified in the collaboration cohorts, you will submit it as an impact grant. If you were fully funded for Acceleration 1 and Acceleration 2 grants that you may have submitted, then you need to submit 2 additional full pathways. Again, you'll go in and submit those either as an Acceleration 2 or an impact grant based upon if it's a program that is identified as one of the OERI's collaboration cohorts. Those again will be submitted in NOVA. Acceleration 2 or impact grants depend upon collaboration cohorts. You need to make sure that you review the information out there. Those reports are all now available, and the ZTC reporting will be according to the grant phases. Third scenario, again, these are for those colleges where the greatest amount of flexibility exists, where if you have colleges, your programs that were in collaboration cohorts, and those collaboration cohort funds that you requested were either underfunded, or you were in situations where you had an Acceleration 2 grant, but the amount that you received was less than the full amount that you requested, you flexibly, at the determination of your institution, you can flex the funding. You can backfill those, and we will ask you then to provide the Chancellor's Office with a report for how that you are going to spend those funds. Now, please note, this ZTC 2025 allocation came after the fact. If you're a college that was in a situation where you said, we submitted our program plans, but now that we know this is basically the funding available and how it's going to work, we want to change those. If you were not awarded for those programs, then you have flexibility. We will work with you. You can go in, you can update and change those program plans. We're happy to decertify plans and give you more time. Next slide, please. So as we're looking at this particular program, please note, in terms of everything current, we have approved the Acceleration 2 Impact and OER Expansion Grant Awards. Anything that we were able to approve that had systematic need or high regional benefit to the best of our knowledge, or something that was very unique in nature, we sought to try to award at least 1 per submission per college. All Acceleration 2 Impact and OER Expansion Grant notifications have been sent. There will be no more if you will, awarded programs direct from us. Now, if an acceleration to or implementation ZTC, that should be impact ZTC program plan was submitted in NOVA and did not receive an award notification, then it becomes a college choice matter. There are no denials. These are not denied programs. What it means is if you submitted these additional areas, acceleration to or impact, forget that error, it says implementation, it should say impact, and they're in bullet 2. But if you submitted those, it is now a college choice matter. If you need to use the $320,000 flexibly to go back and to backfill programs, you may not utilize any of those that you submitted and say, no, we need the funds to backfill our current programs. If you're in a situation where you're saying, yes, but for the amounts that are available, we need to choose a different program pathway, you can do that. We'll ask you to communicate with us at the ztc@ccco.edu email address, and we will work with you to make adjustments for those programs that were not provided with initial awards. Now, colleges can choose to retract a current acceleration to or impact ZTC pathway that was submitted in NOVA. Really, this is becoming a flexible area. Ultimately, colleges have a local determination on how to best proceed to use these funds regarding the acceleration to and impact grant program pathways in NOVA if they did not receive initial award notifications. So we want you to know back at your colleges, you know what you can do best to serve your students in the most robust manner possible. We just ask that as we go through this process, that we be in communication with you to help us know what it is that your college is going to do with the $320,000. Again, noting there is a ceiling of $200,000 per program pathway. If colleges were in collaboration cohorts, that doesn't apply to everyone, but if your college was in collaboration cohorts, you know that. You received a $25,000 initial award with $5,000 that went to the OERI to facilitate those cohorts. That means that it's up to $130,000 left per program pathway if you needed the full amount. Also, many colleges did receive award notifications of additional funds requests. So you have to do the math. Again, if you had $30,000, if you will, in total allocation with $5,000 going to the ORI, $25,000 coming to your college, and you're in a situation where you got, let's say, an additional $100,000, you have $70,000 left that you can use out of the 320 for backfill. So the idea is at your institutions, if you were in collaboration cohorts, we want those programs to finish at your institutions, and you can utilize these funds to do that. It is possible for a college that had multiple collaboration cohort participation awards where they went to collaboration cohorts that you might not develop any new ZTC program pathways because all of the funds might be used to backfill existing programs. However, our goal, our intent is to create as many new ZTC pathways as possible. So we are asking for colleges to be thoughtful and to see if you can use the funds wisely for the greatest impact to your student to create the maximum number of degrees, to benefit the maximum number of students. And that is directly out of our legislation. Next slide, please. So all colleges must declare how they will use the ZTC 2025 allocation by May 2nd, 2025. The reason for that is this is new information to you. Those funds are going to come to you around the P1 allocation, which usually lands somewhere in February to March. And we want you to be able to go back and think about what is the best way for us to use these funds. It is our understanding that this is a different approach. And we want you to be able to go back and look at your programs. And you might say, you know, we submitted program X, but you know, now in light of this, we really want to retract that if it was not funded, and we want to do program Y. Just let us know. Go into NOVA. We'll uncertify for you, and you can go through and you can resubmit those programs. For those of your colleges that say, we didn't know we were getting $320,000 additional dollars, we've got work to do. We understand that. That's why we have our TAP and the OERI with us on this project. and we will want to work on the steps with you if you need support and help. And part of what the OERI will be doing is they will be working towards helping those high transfer curriculum programs to be able to have ready-made or a lot of high-end OER and also do targeted work around OER for that. So that's the reason why we're partnering with the OERI, and we want to put you in contact with them to help develop out programs that are going to best serve your students. If you're in a situation also where you say maybe you've gone through, we tried to get, I believe we got notifications out to all colleges that submitted requests for additional funds. That process is now done. However, if you did not receive something, if you're not sure, please email us at the ZTC email account. We will respond to you and either resend or make sure that that comes back to you. A lot of those came right before many of you were going away on winter break. So we'll try to get that information out to you as quick as possible. Now, if you have until May 2nd. So it's our expectation you'll go back to your colleges, you'll discuss the funds, look at what it is that you're able to accomplish, and then let us know what you determine to do. James, Gigi, and I will likely be working on a form to help that process so that you have some sort of form email you can send into us that we would distribute out to the ZTC listserv. Colleges that submit new program plans, again, we're not going to create a brand new, yet another area inside of NOVA where you have to fill out yet another program plan. We already have the program plans in place that we need. They'll either fall under the Acceleration 2, which is for those more unique programs, or the Impact Grant, which is those programs that were identified and supported by the OERI's collaboration cohorts. So we'll ask you to still follow those same template processes because we want to know what you're working on and how your work is still going to seek to be non-duplicative of what others are building. Again, we don't want to end up with 50 versions of a particular intro to name the subject matter courses that are completely built without knowledge of what one another's doing. We want to be as efficient as possible, but also look for ways to enhance and build the most quality OER possible. Again, hence our relationship with the OERI. ZTC program pathways developed solely using the ZTC 2025 funds. We're asking that you strive, that's according to the legislation language, that you strive to have those program pathways available to students by fall 2027. That is after the legislative report that we will write. But we understand that this is a late send to your institutions. But we're asking that you strive to have them in place by that point. The legislation says 3 years. So we are asking as much as possible by notification. When we gave the colleges notification that the funds would be coming in the fall of 2024, late fall, we're asking that you strive to have those in place by fall of 2027. We will collect data all the way through January of 2027 prior to that point to get as much data as possible, because it is our goal to write a legislative report that will provide ongoing ZTC funding as much as possible. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about some of the allocation funding uses. We get a lot of questions around this, and as much as possible, we want to provide information to you about what are some of the more typical ways that the funding can be used. So first off, hopefully it goes without saying, but the ZTC funding has to be used directly on the ZTC degree grant program objectives. With all respect to people that might need equipment in their gyms, this is not to buy those areas. I think that goes without saying. But local control really is what determines ZTC funds use. But it does need to result anywhere where you're purchasing materials or resources. We do want you to think about sustainability. For instance, buying hard textbooks to loan out to students, as soon as you buy them, they start to age in terms of their content, in terms of their ability to be damaged, lost, stolen. Those are areas that are very difficult to replace. So we are asking you to look for sustainability wherever possible. You can look to use funds in investing in your ZTC coordinator or OER coordinator at your institution, or ZTC course design and accessibility support at your institutions, that's fully allowable as long as it's being directed towards the ZTC courses. Faculty stipends, overload, reassign time, using the funds to either augment or fully invest in library licenses of digital materials. If you need to invest in a software platform, if you're going into contract with any agencies out there that help with the remixing or helping with accessibility standards, those are allowable costs as long as they're being expended on ZTC courses and programs. You can use the funds to market the ZTC program. You've done a lot of work, and we want to make sure that that work, as it goes forward, is known to your students. Remember that all your ZTC courses in your class schedules need to be designated as ZTC, which can include using the ZTC icon, or needs to prominently display those materials as ZTC so that students know, hey, this cost does not have associated materials costs. And we do recommend, if you're going to do work in this program, that you are paying close attention to the research aspect. We just finished up and are continuing right now the review of our ZTC progress reports for the implementation and acceleration grants. We are in the process of reviewing those now. We've been approving some of those, and we'll be in contact with some colleges. If your college has not yet submitted those, please get them in ASAP. They were due at the end of December, and we still have several places where there are blanks. We'll be reaching out to you too to begin bugging you about those. But the reason for that is we want to make sure that you're progressing, that it is a progress check. It does not have to be perfect, but we are seeking as much as possible to know where you are. So if you need research support or reporting support, you can dedicate ZTC funds in that direction. And lastly, we get questions about materials or devices that allow for ZTC materials access. The answer is it's your local decision. However, please make sure that you're able to keep records and have that reasonable and justifiable standard. If an audit were to come of the ZTC program, you want to make sure, and you're working with your grants office, that you are able to demonstrate that the program funds were used for program-related purposes. And that there wasn't, if you will, excesses or non-justifiable purchases that were made utilizing those funds. So again, when you're going through these funds, we wanted to make sure that your college could take these funds and then go back and consider what's the best way to use them. Again, many programs were not fully funded. They were partially funded, or we tried to get as high end as we could to still leave room for this level of an allocation. We want you to be able to think, where do these funds need to best be applied at our institutions, noting that $200,000 total ceiling, and then you can utilize those funds accordingly. But if any programs, let's say for instance, total at your college, you've received $520,000 and you only have 2 pathways, you have to build a third, because you cannot have 2 pathways and $520,000. That obviously goes over the threshold for what the legislation allows for programs to be purchased. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, working together, all of us, we are going to try to put together the most robust legislative report possible. Please keep that in mind, that this is a partnership, that we are going to go back to the legislature in 2027, the people that you see on this panel here with me, and we are going to write for sustainability of ongoing ZTC support funding so an investment of this magnitude does not go away. You have done tremendous work at your institutions. Reading your progress reports is exciting. We are so happy to see what is happening in the field. The energy around this work is fantastic, and we want to capture that, and we want to make the best case possible. So please note, we were going through and reviewing those reports and responding, and there's still the 2025 reports that will come. We're going to do everything we can to try to make those reports be simplified as much as possible. Hopefully they weren't overly painful, but the data piece is necessary so that we can do that work behind the scenes. Final reports from colleges will be January 2027. That's an update. And again, we're going to seek the best way to try to get that information possible. We're working with the RP group to help us with data and then with data analysis so that we can write a strong report. In the spring, coming up soon as well, there will be annual ZTC surveys. This will help us get the anecdotal information, tell your stories to the legislature, talk about the impacts it had. XB12 data at your institutions, we're going to be pulling from that as much as possible. So please work with your MIS folks. Try to get your XB12 data as accurate as possible. There is a webinar on our site about XB12 reporting that we did in conjunction with our research office. Please pay attention to that. And we will be pulling and trying to cross-reference Chancellor's Office MIS data everywhere possible. The RP group is helping, working with our researchers so that you're not re-reporting and re-reporting the same information over and over. So I'm going to now ask for the advancement to the next slide and turn it over to James Gigi.
Thank you, Chad. Wow, that's a lot of information, and there's a lot going on, obviously. And we want you to know that you are not alone in developing and implementing these ZTC pathways to benefit our students. In fact, in the questions, Kelly Adams asked a really great question that may be on the minds of others. She asked, how is each college expected to create pathways if they don't have an adequate ZTC team or faculty that want to use OER in their courses, right? Colleges are getting this money, and what if you're not ready to use it? Well, the good news is there is a lot of support out here between the ZTC Technical Assistance Program at College of the Canyons and the Academic Senate's OERI that Michelle will talk about in a little bit. But what I want to do is run through some of the support that the Technical Assistance team provides to you. So let's go to the next slide, please. So first of all, we offer monthly open office hours for folks to drop in, bring their questions. One set of office hours is really focused on OER librarians and the needs of librarians. You see the topics listed there, cataloging OER and what's the role of the library in OER or ZTC teams, etc. These are open office hours. Bring your questions and share with your colleagues and have a great facilitated discussion with a couple of really amazing, talented librarian colleagues from our system. And then also monthly, we have open licensing office hours. For those of you steeped in OER, you know that the key to OER is an open license, perhaps a Creative Commons license. Every month we host open office hours on this topic. We have a world-renowned expert on open licensing who spends an hour every month with us, and he'll engage in dialogue with you, answer your questions, and he is also available to consult with you for no cost to your college. So if you would like somebody to come in via Zoom and meet with your faculty, meet with a committee on campus, he can certainly do that. He's a former faculty member and a real expert in Creative Commons licensing. So next slide, please. Oh, let me say also, we're working on another set of open office hours around the publishing process. What's Pressbooks? What's H5P? How do you set up a workflow? If somebody authors a textbook, what do you do after that? So we're setting up some office hours that will have experts in that element, and we'll also we'll be there to answer your questions monthly. So next slide, please. Thank you. Also, we offer coaching for colleges. So in California community colleges, we have a great number of experienced leaders in OER and ZTC programs, and we have a number of them under contract with us, faculty, staff, and administrators who are experienced leaders, and they're available to be matched up with you, engage with you one-on-one. If you're a new ZTC coordinator and you don't know what's going on, this person could come in and coach you privately, or come in and meet with your committee every month. So reach out to us and we're happy to make that match for you. And of course, that's no charge to you. Next slide, please. We also offer a huge range of professional development courses. These are all online facilitated professional development courses offered through the At One platform, the online network of educators through our colleagues at CVC. You see the titles here: Making the Case for ZTC, Pathways to Equity, Building a Team, Teaching with OER and Open Pedagogy, Navigating the Future, which is a fun course. It's all about the intersections between open education and AI. And our newest course, which we began in January, is Beyond Boundaries, OER, and Universal Design for Learning. So again, those are all facilitated online courses, and we're increasing the number of sections that we offer in response to exactly Kelly Adams' sentiment in the chat there that colleges might not be prepared to develop these pathways. So we're going to ramp up the number of sections that we offer. And you can find those listed in the At One catalog. And also, hopefully you are subscribed to the ZTC list. And maybe my colleague Justine could drop in the chat or in the Q&A directions for how one can subscribe to the ZTC email list, because we send out a lot of announcements through the ZTC email list about these professional development opportunities. Next slide, please. Also, we host every year an in-person summit at College of the Canyons focused on celebrating what we're all doing together. James Todd talked about creating a strong, sustainable infrastructure for the state. So we want to get together and get to know one another, celebrate the successes, identify promising practices. So this is a save the date for Friday, May 9th at College of the Canyons in northern Los Angeles County, right next to the 30 minutes from Burbank Airport. I'll be sending out to that ZTC email list soon, a formal save the date. So get that on your calendar. We hope to see you there. That was really fun last year. Next slide, please. And another new offering, really in response to the sentiment that Kelly expressed, will be an in-person intensive OER Coordinator Academy, a one-day drive-in training for people who are brand new to this. Maybe you're a new faculty member, and when you showed up, some dean or vice president said, "Hey, guess what? You're going to be the ZTC coordinator," or you're a dean, and same thing happened. Some vice president said, "Hey, you're gonna supervise the ZTC grads," and you might not know a lot of what's involved. So we're going to get folks together at different locations around the state, ideally, someplace in the South, someplace in the North, someplace in the Central Valley, someplace in the Inland Empire, etc. So look for this starting in fall 2025, probably over the next couple of semesters. We'll offer a number of in-person sessions, of course, in collaboration with our friends at the OERI. You see the list of topics there on the screen. So we're trying to respond to the needs of the field. Again, folks who maybe, receive this great infusion of funding, but are not completely set up to use it successfully. So we want to make sure that you're being supported. Next slide, please. For more information, the contact information is here. Our website is ztctap.org, and you can email me and my team at ztctap@canyons.edu. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to my friend Michelle.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, James. I'm really happy to be here to talk to you about the OERI and our support for colleges. And I want to let everyone know that there are about there are about twice as many unanswered questions as there are answered questions. So be patient. The answers are coming. I mistakenly thought that this was going to be predominantly people who we're used to seeing and talking about, but some of the questions indicate there are people here who aren't necessarily connected to the OER and ZTC work that has been going on. So I hope you will figure out how to get connected. At just about every college, we have a liaison, an OER liaison at your college who is connected to all the work that we're doing. And if you don't know that, if you're new to the OER ZTC space, please find out who that person is. And if you need help figuring out who that person is, we can help you do that. I'm really pleased to be here. And like many of you, we learned about this money coming our way while most everyone else was on break. And so we've been trying to figure out where we go with all of this. And what I can share are our ideas of where we're going to go with it. But we really need to hear from the people who are doing the work. So for those of you who are facing struggles locally, we want to hear about those struggles and hear about how we can help. And we already have some ideas about how we can help that are inform the things that I'm going to say in a moment. Next slide, please. So the OERI's position has always been that it makes sense to really think about OER resources from a statewide perspective, so that we are really thinking about our students as a whole and not just growing things locally, but really thinking about how do we benefit everyone. And by having more funding and being in this position where we're being asked by the Chancellor's Office to work with the ZTC program and think about things in a statewide perspective, it really allows us to really step back and figure out how do we take an ongoing statewide approach in order to promote sustainability of the OER work that we're doing. And these are the things that we're currently wrestling with and that we need input from the field to know how to do it best. This really puts us also in a position to support collaborative OER development. Those of you who are familiar with what we've done, we have had funding opportunities where we bring faculty together from across the colleges to develop a resource. And we've done this in different ways with faculty applying or with a need being identified and us then bringing the faculty together to do the work and supporting them through the process. And so we're going to be able to do more of that moving forward and really looking at some of those things that are hard to get to zero, particularly if you're a lone faculty member at a college trying to make things happen. So we are really looking forward to expanding what we're doing to support your local efforts. Next slide, please. Some specifics around this. From our work with OER development, we recognize that if you are going to be developing OER, there are certain things that you need to know up front. You need to know about the basics of OER, the licensing. You also need to know about accessibility within the platforms that you're building in. We have self-paced courses in OER basics and accessibility basics as well that are also available through @ONE. They're self-paced course, but we are now offering facilitated supported courses as scheduled from February 10th to March 14th. The OER basics, and then the facilitator supported accessibility basics from April 7th to May 2nd. And so these are things that we would encourage you if you have faculty who are new to the OER space. These are great ways for them to learn about the things that they need to know before they embark on that. The other thing is it helps to have project management, someone who can guide you in that. And so we are in the process of developing a course and then resources also that people can take and use moving forward. And we're also going to be holding office hours so that if you are having project management challenges, we can help you with that as well. There's so much that we have yet to do that is going to be based on field input, what you all tell us you are needing. And so the big question that we're going to be asking is what can OER do to better support our OER liaisons and then local ZTC leads who may not be those OER liaisons. So we will be using that ZTC listserv to make sure you know more about what we're doing and also to reach out for your input if you're not connected to that local OER work. One thing that we have in place already is discipline leads that are discipline faculty that your faculty who have questions about a discipline can come to, who curate our lists of resources in specific disciplines. We're looking at those discipline leads having a larger role and doing more as we identify needs that need to be filled. Related to this work, we have our own DEI effort, which is the IDEA framework, inclusivity, diversity, equity, and anti-racism, that is used to assess resources and revise them. And we're going to be increasing the work that we do with that. Our other two big pieces of the work that we're looking at doing are looking at really system-wide solutions for meeting needs and then sustainability and duplication. Next slide, please. So on the system-wide solutions scope, we're looking at specific disciplines challenges and how we can address them. Homework systems have always been one of the biggest barriers to getting courses to zero. And so We are looking at contextualized training. We've heard a lot during the collaboration cohort process about the need of specific disciplines to learn how to build or how to adapt available OER assessments. We're also looking at, as I mentioned before, collaborated development, and then also specific technology needs. One of the things that we're trying to start getting a jump on right now is images and really building out complete collections of images for different disciplines, anatomy and physiology being one that has been mentioned many times. So making sure that we have one place where you can find all the available images that are openly licensed, and then also identifying which images are missing, what changes are needed, and making that happen. We also really think there's a role for looking at common accessibility needs and concerns. If there's a commonly used OER that has accessibility issues, it shouldn't be up to a bunch of different colleges to fix it. It should get fixed, and then everyone should know where to find and how to get that accessible resource. We're also looking at expanding the professional development that we're doing. And again, a lot of these things are going to be shaped by what we hear from the field. Next slide, please. So sustainability is something that we've been thinking a lot about, and how do you take this wide array of resources and compile what needs to happen in those resources over time, and then make those changes. And so what we want to do is look at ways to track the changes that are needed and pilot a process for that, recognizing that the needs for courses in social sciences versus in the STEM areas and so forth are very, very different. And so we'll be working with our discipline leads to explore this, ideally trying out, piloting some approaches and seeing how they work, with the goal being that if you are teaching a course that is commonly taught, that there would be a regular review where here are the changes that need to be made. Here are the basically the changes in the discipline that need to be integrated, and then for particular resources that are commonly used, working with faculty across the state to update those resources. Next slide, please. I think that might be it for me. Oh, nope, not quite. So OER on duplication. So around duplication, you have understandable interest in making changes at the local level and your specific lens that you want, but we want to find a way to have everyone share as they're developing at least what their plans are, so that people aren't literally doing the same thing at the same time. There are certain resources out there that are commonly used where lots of different people have noted the same problems with them. Why not figure out a way to come together, and instead of everybody making the same changes, divide up the work? And so we're now in a position where we can really help doing that. It also makes sense to support peer review of new resources. As new resources are created or existing resources are modified, a great way to get faculty interested in them is to have them review them and have that review inform the author that developed the resource, and then that person who's reviewing also benefits from taking a look at that resource. And one of the things that we will continue to do is showcase new resources and really work on identifying associated needs. Next slide, please. Which I don't think, and I really wanted to get through that quickly so that there was some time for you all to ask questions, because I don't think Chad got through all those questions while I was speaking. So back to Chad.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So we're going to do our best. James Gigi, if you can come on, he's going to try to help us look at those that we were able to answer, and we'll try to moderate through this with the few minutes we have left. I do want to point out on Fridays, the last Friday of every month, we have the ZTC office hour as well. So if we're unable to get to a particular question that you have, you're invited, please come and join us. You can find that office hour on the ZTC website here at the Chancellor's Office. We encourage you to come and join us there. We'll try to answer those. But James Gigi, if you will help us with to moderate. James, Todd, do you have something to add first?
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, they can also reach us at ztc@cccco.edu. So you can even copy and paste your question into an email, and we'll get back to you as well. I want to encourage folks to meet with Chad, to meet with James, to work with Michelle. This is a different era. We have stopped awarding funds. And so trying to think and take that time that Chad mentioned to plan on your campus to make as big of an impact as possible is really important. Look through your ZTC pathways or your OER pathways, find ways that you can leverage large sections of your general education, and try to think strategically about how you're leveraging the funds to make a shift. And quite frankly, what we're really trying to do is also garner of movement on your campus. Whether it is fully funded or not, how can we really make this shift and produce OER, utilize OER, understand that it makes a dramatic impact on our students' lives if we can make this change to OER and have no cost textbooks available for students. So this is seed money, honestly, for us to have a much more impactful movement across our entire system. So I hope you understood the philosophy of where we've gotten so far with these funds. We will continue to advocate and work on ways that we can have sustainability for our campuses. And I've had many people reach out in terms of what would really help that. But use this moment to try to garner that kind of focus and leverage them as best as we can. I'm sorry to jump in there with that, Chad, but I think it's an important moment for us to recognize that.
Absolutely. So James, Gigi, if you can go through, are there some questions that maybe came through that we haven't got to? I see that through a number, but if there are, especially if there are theme-based, we'll try to answer those.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. One question that was asked a couple of times was the question about the expenditure deadline for this new set of funds. Justine kindly pointed folks towards the existing website on the Chancellor's Office that talks about the expenditure deadlines for previous grant phases. How about this current grant phase, particularly, as was pointed out in the questions, with the new endeavor to provide the pathway by fall of 2027? How does that align with an expenditure deadline?
Sure. So if you have already submitted a program plan that was an Acceleration 1 or Acceleration 2, that includes the collaboration cohorts, we're seeking that you would still have those program plans in place by fall 2026. If you utilize part of these funds to backfill those, that doesn't change the date because those were already program plans in process. But this new ZTC 2025 allocation, we do not yet have a hard published deadline. We recognize that colleges will go through fall 2027. We're asking for that, striving to reach that according to the legislation. But the funds therefore will likely need to be spent out beyond that point because there could be work happening. That is when the beginning courses need to be available for that pathway. More than likely, we will land at an end of 2028 for this latest funding distribution. But when we have a hard deadline from our fiscal department, we will inform the colleges. But my guess is we will be looking at fall of 2028. So there's more time, and it's understood that your programs are going to take more time to develop and work with the OERI as you go forward. So there is some time there. James, is there maybe time for maybe one or two more questions, depending on what we
thank you, Jeff. Another theme has to do with that concept of backfilling. Let's say, for example, a college submitted, college got a team together, created a program plan, submitted for an Acceleration 2 impact. They were not fully funded. Now they've got this new infusion of money. How many programs or pathways are they obligated to?
Excellent. So it really depends on the number of program pathways that you're backfilling. So if let's say you were in 5 collaboration cohorts, and the funding difference is that 320,000 would bring all of your program pathways. If you needed 300 or up to 200,000, you could ostensibly use the full 320,000 just on your existing pathways. That's understandable. It's allowable under the legislation. If that's what your college says it needs, you can do that. However, our intent, according to the legislation, is to maximize the number of degrees and CTE certificate pathways in the state and make those available to students. So we're asking that you utilize those funds accordingly. If you oversaturate, if you go over $200,000 for your collective number of program pathways, then you are going to need to develop a third or an additional ZTC program pathway. Our goal is that everyone would try to build 2 if possible, but that might not be obtainable. It really is dependent upon your institution. Panel, we are at 4 o'clock, so I want to give respect to everyone's time. We're going to need to shut this particular time down. Again, you can email us. We'll also be at the ZTC office hours. That will be this Friday, 9 o'clock. You're welcome to come there and participate. We will have more time to converse and work there. But on behalf of our panelists in the Chancellor's Office, thank you for attending today's webinar. As earlier noted, the recording for this session and supporting materials, they'll be available on the Chancellor's Office website within a week or 2. We have to go through the remediation process to make sure everything's accessible. I'll send a notification through the ZTC listserv email account once the content is posted and with the recording, so you can get to those. Thank you so much for joining us. I know this is a lot of information, but we are committed to working with you, to supporting you and giving you flexibility wherever possible to meet your students' needs and to be able to work within your particular ramifications at your institutions. So thank you so much. We're excited to be partnering with you in this work and with the OERI and with our TAP to make ZTC sustainable in the state of California. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.